Welcome back everybody to Spirit Hunters Paranormal 911. My name is Tim. We're doing a part series on paranormal investigating and research, talking about different subjects. The subject that I'm going to go over today is doing an investigation. There are a lot of investigators out there that have their own way of doing things, but I'm going to talk about the way we do our investigation. But before I get into that, on our last video we talked about places that you can go to do investigations, and we also talked about safety procedures, and we also talked about the different type of spirits. I want to kind of touch base on a couple of those subjects. The first one is on places to go investigate. A lot of people think that you need to go to places that are haunted or have some kind of paranormal activity, and as I said, this is not necessarily true. It does help, because if you go to a place that already is active, you will get a lot more activity, because it's pretty much constantly all the time it happens. But there are places, you don't necessarily have to be a place that's had any type of haunting or any type of activity. Pretty much every home, there are spirits there. A lot of them you don't know. It's usually a family member that's passed away. They're there with you. They're not doing anything. They're just more or less just there kind of watching over you. Some of them will do some sort of activity. You may not even notice it. There are places that I go to, or have had people contact me saying that they have had some kind of strange happening or heard strange sounds, that believe that their house was haunted, that I've gone to and investigated. Most of the time I'm finding that it is of a family member that is there. Usually when they're doing something that's catching your attention, is because they're trying to say something, they're trying to communicate with you. It's like they don't know how to go about doing it, or how to make you see or hear what they're saying, because the majority of us, we can't see spirits, we can't hear them. We do catch things out of our eyes, like shadows, or notice that maybe an object has been moved. Things like that, a lot of us are able to capture. There are those that have that gift, that are able to capture a lot of things. I somewhat have that kind of ability, not necessarily like a medium or a psychic or a clairvoyant, but I do have that ability, that I am able to pick up on energy feelings, be able to hear whispers or voices or sounds that other people can't, able to see figures that other people can't see. So that helps me, but it doesn't help a lot of people. But a lot of people get scared because they think their house is haunted. Not necessarily true. It might be just a family member. You do have other places that do have a spirit there that wasn't a family member, but I'm finding the majority of the time that is someone else that had lived in that house at one time. You occasionally get I guess you could call it like a stray spirit that just kind of decided to make residency there. But a lot of these spirits, they're not harmful. They're just there. A lot of people, that I do find that a lot of spirits kind of attach themselves to certain items in a home. Generally that is somewhat an item that they favored, or an item they cared a lot about. It's got like a big part of their life. A lot of times they'll attach themselves to that type of item. They do say that mirrors, which I can't say whether it's true or not, it's just what a lot of spirit hunters will say, and even people that do documented research will say that mirrors are like a gateway or a portal to the other side. Whether this is true or not, I really don't know. I don't really think that they know. I think this is more of a guess or an assumption that the possibility is there. Really don't know. But I want to kind of touch that base a little bit, because I did have a lot of people ask me about, spirits being in their home, uh, where all spirits are usually at. That pretty much everywhere, I would say. Of course, this is my opinion. Everybody has their own opinions. They vary, but I'm pretty much going by the experiences that I've gone through, some of the cases that I've investigated on. So these are pretty much my opinions. The other subject that I wanted to kind of touch base on, again, was on the different types of spirits. You said you had your residual, your intelligent, and your poltergeist, and of course your demon. But we won't go with the demon part, because I'm not qualified in that field at this time. I'm still studying. But I want to talk a little bit more about the poltergeist. A lot of people will feel that a poltergeist is an evil entity or evil energy, because they throw things or move things, or even scratch or push or hurt people. That's, it's true that there are, I guess you would call them more of a bad energy, or an energy that has been angered at some point, or the ones that are more likely to harm you in some way. But there are those poltergeist energies that are not bad. They're more of a positive. They are able to move stuff, things that a lot of other spirits don't, or unable to do, because they contain a lot more energy. So you want to kind of be cautious when you're dealing with a poltergeist energy or a spirit, because there are some of them that been angered, or you possibly have angered them. We really don't know what is behind that energy, what has caused that energy to be like that. These are assumptions that we assume that something has angered them, so they're making their presence known. So I've always said that when you're doing a paranormal investigation or research, trying to communicate with spirits, always have the attitude of dealing with, speaking to them with respect, not trying to harm them or show them any reason that you are trying to harm them. Be polite. That way, you get a lot more response from them. I find that, in a lot of cases I do, if I'm respectful, polite, use my words as needed to come over that way to them, I get a lot of more response from them. I try not to anger them, because if you do anger a spirit, they can come back at you, somewhat, sometimes in kind of a harmful way, by pushing you or hitting you, scratching you, biting you. I mean, there's so many different things that they can do to us. But I find that if I'm polite and respectful, I don't have that happen. I've never had that happen. I have been through a few poltergeist experiences, not of an evil poltergeist, but just one that has the energy to move objects, which I think is priceless, especially if you can capture it on camera. But if you do that type of, in this type of field of doing paranormal research or investigating, be mindful about that. I do get questions from people, again on the subject places to go. Um, like I say, you can just about go anywhere. You may not be able to get any activity or results the first time. You may have to go back 2, 3 times, maybe even 4 or more before you have any activity. I find that in a lot of the cemeteries, because that's one thing I do a lot of, because I enjoy cemeteries. Not only to get poltergeist, or not poltergeist, but paranormal activity, but I go to them for the history on them, because they kind of amaze me. History on old cemeteries. It's like if a cemetery could talk, it could tell us the story. A lot of the first pioneers that started these communities around us. I like the uniqueness and the differences of the different headstones. Um, Nowadays they're pretty much all common, but you go into some older cemeteries that are 100 years or more of old headstones in it. Some of these are real unique, and I enjoy, looking at them, seeing some of the dates. Um, One thing about cemeteries that kind of hits home with me, well, not necessarily home, but it's a sadness that I feel, is when I come across graves of children. One has died at a young age, and one has died at birth. It's kind of a sad feeling, because um, I can't even imagine what a family goes through when they lose a child. I mean, I'm sure it's devastating. It's real hard on them. Fortunately, I've been lucky where all my children have been healthy, my grandchildren. I never had that issue that happened to me, but I do feel that pain of that family when a child dies, because a lot of the grave sites I go to of children, it's like I'm feeling an energy from them, a sadness from them. Um, they're ones that I like to try to communicate with. Of course, it's hard to communicate with the spirit of a child. I don't know about a lot of people, but back when I was growing up, we were always told to, never talk to strangers. Kind of stay away from somebody we don't know. And that I still think that still goes today. There's a lot of people who still have that belief. I've always taught my children the same thing. Never talk to strangers. Um, if they call them, want them to come over to them or whatever, you don't go. But a lot of graves, most of my dealings are of grave sites, and a lot of times, like I say, I'm not there to see if I can capture any activity. A lot of times I'll just go to a cemetery for more on the history line, kind of educational, to learn about them, see the different headstones. I enjoy, um, especially in the older graves where you don't see any type of memorial, a memory where people place flowers or some kind of trinket or wreath or some kind of ornament around them. I kind of feel sad for those, because they're almost like they're forgotten. And this could be because they no longer have family living, or it could be because possibly none of the family lives in that area. So I've been kind of making a habit, I guess you would say, of going to some of these older graves, excuse me, and placing flowers on them. We will place like gemstones on top of the headstones. A lot of people ask me why I do that. It's been don't want to really say it was a tradition, but it's been going on for a long time, where people will put a coin on top of a headstone, or a rock, or a gemstone. They say it's kind of let them know, or let people know, that somebody was there that visited that grave site. They were there to show their respects. We leave pennies on some of them just to show that we were there to visit. But we also leave like a gemstone on some of them. To me, I feel the gemstone, especially a white or clear stone, is more of a positive energy. We set them on there, I believe it is to help give that spirit energy as well as to protect any type of evil or dark energy from them. Now, I can't say that this is true fact or anything like that. It's just what I believe, but we do that. Another thing that we just recently started doing is on a lot of the soldiers, the military people that have fought in wars, clear back to the Civil War, through World War I, II, even into the Vietnam War, just all wars. If we come across a lot of headstones of military people, some of them you will see that have flags at them. There's a lot of them that don't, especially the older graves, the ones that are back in the early 1900s or back into the 1800s. We've been going around to quite a few of those and placing flags at them to kind of memorize them, to thank them for serving our country, honoring them. I can't say that we do every one of these grave sites by placing flowers or gemstones or flags, because if we were able to do all of them, we would, but that could get to be very expensive. So we just kind of do it here and there as we can. I just wanted to kind of touch base on those two subjects there. So now we'll go into what I would like to talk to about today in this video. Of course, I would say be sure you watch our other videos on this subject on paranormal research and investigation, because this is a part series. So you might want to start from the first one and go through. That way you're not starting in the middle, and we may have gone over something that we went over, say, in part one, and you feel like, well, I'm kind of confused or lost or don't understand exactly what we're talking about. It would be helpful if you watch them from the beginning on through. The subject I want to talk about today is on how to do an investigation, because there are a lot of people out there that are wanting to get into doing paranormal investigating or research and don't quite know how to go about it. Of course, most paranormal investigators or researchers out there, they have their own style or way of doing their investigations, which they're all good. I'm not saying they're doing it wrong or anything like that. They just have their style, and we have our style, the way we do it. But I will talk about the way we do it, which is kind of give you pointers, suggestions, or ideas on how to do one if this is something you would like to do. And you don't have to have a whole lot of fancy equipment to be able to do an investigation or be able to pick up on any type of activity. You don't have to go to any place particular. You have to have a lot of patience, like I've said, because you will go to a place and you may spend an hour, 2 hours longer and get nothing, even though you're going through all the right steps and the procedures. Most of the time, I think the reason why we don't get any type of activity, especially if you go to a place that nobody else has been to or ever even tried to do any type of research or investigation, the spirits, I believe, they do see us, they do hear us, they recognize, that we are there. They're seeing stuff that we have, especially those from the early days. They see stuff that we have now they're unfamiliar with. They're not sure what we're doing, why we're doing it, so they're more or less curious. They're watching us, possibly following us around, which I do feel is true, because I pick up on that feeling of an energy around me, like we are being followed or we are being watched, and I believe that's what is happening and the reason why it's happening. They're just checking us out to see what we're doing. And I feel this is another reason that is good by going to these cemeteries and just visiting them, placing flowers on them, acknowledging that they once had a life. I believe that the spirits do pick up on that. And by making, different visits, go one day, maybe a week later, go back again, visit. Do something different, place some flowers on it. Go to different graves. Just stand by a grave for a little bit and kind of, feel like it was a relative of yours. Just, talk about them. You may not be able to say anything really about them like you know them, but, just kind of like have a conversation with them, that you're sorry that they passed away, or especially on a child, always, talk about how sad it is that they never had a chance to live their life. Their life was cut at a short age. They never had the chance to do things, grow up as a child, play. It's real sad. Whole conversations like that. And to me, I feel like it's making a bonding with them. They're saying I'm not there to harm them in any way. More likely, like I'm trying to be a friend with them. That's always helpful. So, like I say, be patient. You may have to go to these grave sites or wherever you go, whether it's a house or trying to do something in your home to make communication with a loved one. Be patient about it. Just because they're not getting any response does not truly mean that they aren't there. I believe that they are. This is my opinion. I do believe that they are. They may not know how to interact with you, but just be patient, because I believe that a lot of times they don't have the energy that they need to be able to do things by moving an object or knocking on a wall or making some type of sound. They're trying, but they're unable at the time. Once they are able to gain energy, then they're able to start doing things. So be patient. That this that you're trying to do will probably, or more than likely, eventually, you will have some results from it. I've always also read articles. I don't know if I'm a believer in this theory. It sounds logical, but I'm not sure. But I've heard and read that they say that spirits, when they pass away, they have energy. They still have their energy with them. That's how they are able to, I guess, move out of their body, be able to go to the other side through the light. They still have energy, but over a period of time, that energy starts fading from them. And it's said that if a spirit does not get, I don't know if you want to call it a recognition, or have people talk about them or mention them or anything like that, that energy totally fades. So, they lose their energy. They're not able to do, much of anything. Excuse me. Like I say, I don't know if this is true, but, I kind of keep an open mind that it's a possibility. But I don't think anybody can really prove that is the reasoning or facts of what is happening. The spirits, like I say, they need a lot of energy to be able to do a lot of things, to show themselves as an orb or manifest into a figure or a shadow figure. The more energy they have, the more they can do. Be able to knock They still need the energy, not as much. To be able to speak, to where you hear a voice or a whisper, that takes a little more energy, and a lot of times it's hard for them to speak because, I don't know, in their world or their realm, they're able to communicate back and forth with each other, I think, just fine. But trying to communicate back into our world, I believe it might be a little bit harder. That's why they say that they use our devices, that they manipulate to where they can regain the words, be able to come up with a voice to speak. Some people have said that they have heard the voice of a relative or somebody they knew, that the voice was exactly, it sounded exactly like them. Some have said that the communications they got, they do think that it was of the person they were trying to communicate, but it was a different voice. So we don't know how that works. So that's something you just got to kind of keep in mind, go with the flow. Just because you're hearing a voice doesn't mean it's not the person that you're trying to communicate, because the voice sounds different. Now, I want to go on to the subject of doing investigations. Like I say, this is our way of doing them. We do it in stages. There's steps to the way we do it. The first thing we do in investigation is, we choose a location. We pick a place that we're going to do, whether it's a cemetery, do it at our home, go to a old bridge, try to pick a spot, like a haunted house or an old abandoned building or a historical place, building or structure. These are all places that you can go to. A lot of times I'll try to pick places where there's been something unfortunate happened, like a person has died there, or several people have died, like maybe a place that a house or a building that caught on fire, or something happened where several people died. I feel those are places that usually have a lot of energy. Grave sites, I'm a real believer in a lot of energy there of spirits, because I believe that a lot of spirits, they still kind of cling to or hang around their physical body, which is placed there. So I believe that's where a lot of their energy is still at. I do try to pick places that possibly where a car accident had happened, where somebody had passed away. Funeral homes, the hospital, you always have death there, especially a funeral home, because your body goes through there. I don't know necessarily that the spirit stays there. I think it goes through the process with their body as they're being, buried through the funeral and whatnot. But I don't believe they stay there. There are some investigators that do believe that some spirits are still there. This I can't really say. But we try to pick out locations, and once we picked out a location, then we'll do some history on it. A lot of times we can't find any information on these places, or any people that may have some type of experience with the places or stories to tell about this place. A lot of times we are able to get that information. This information, that if we are able to get it, that I gather it, I pretty much keep that information to myself. I don't pass this information to my crew, especially if it has something that there has been some type of activity. I keep that information from them, because I want them to go in with an open mind, a clean head, not thinking they're going to get anything, so they're going to have more of a I guess, a wide open search that they're going to look. They're going to be looking for everything, trying to find anything around them. They're not going to be looking for any particular item. I find that beneficial, and then of course when we're all done, then everybody kind of compares their notes, what they saw or what they felt, so it kind of comes beneficial. So kind of, if you have other people with you, which I recommend, do not do this on your own. Always have a partner with you or several people, because just because you didn't see it doesn't mean that they might have been looking a different direction and they saw something. So it helps when you have a group rather than you're doing it on your own. Now, gather this information, find your place, do your research on it, and once you have all that, then you set up your investigation. Set a time to go do your investigation. Whether it's a daytime, whether it's a nighttime. I find night times I do get more activity or more results than I do during the day. I'm not saying that I don't get activity or results during the day, but it seems like I get more at nighttime. Now, before we actually do the investigation itself by videoing it, trying to use our equipment to get responses, we'll usually do like a first time walkthrough, kind of get our feelings of the area, look the situation over, see if we can see any source of power, like power lines or homes around us. We'll listen, see what kind of sounds we hear around us, a highway or road or train tracks nearby. If we pick up on any sounds that are off in the distance that could hinder our investigation, where we could pick up those sounds while we're doing our investigation. We try to get all those bases covered. That way when we do our investigation, we have a better idea that, well, no, that sound was a vehicle, over here on the road, or the voice we heard is a house just back in behind the woods that we can't see, and we heard voices over there. Always pay attention if you're out kind of in the country. Sounds like you hear somebody walking or banging on something. This very well possibly could be an animal, so keep that in mind. There's different things that could be making these sounds or making things happen. Just keep a logical mind and open mind. Now, once we do our walkthrough, we'll use our K2 meter or EMF meter, whichever way you want to call it, to see if we get any type of magnetic energy readings. That way, during the day, if we get any reading, we can do a little more thorough investigation, trying to see if there's anything there that's causing it, or whether it could be a possibility of reading. I do pick up on energy feelings, so that kind of benefits us, because I can, pick up that usually we're being followed or watched, or there is some kind of energy there, so that helps. But if you don't have that ability, then you have to go by what your equipment does. I always say to use your senses. That's your best equipment that you actually have. Being able to see, to hear, to smell. Always, pay attention to the smells around you. Listen for any type of sound, no matter how indistinct it might be. Pick up on it. Constantly look around. Kind of like you have the feeling that there's somebody behind you, or somebody off over here behind a tree or a bush watching you. Just glance around as you're walking through. Look the area over, the ground, if there's any holes, anything that you might trip over or fall into. That always helps, especially if you're doing a night investigation. You're somewhat familiar with the ground that you're walking on, or what is around you. So, just kind of go through those steps, and always be polite. Introduce yourself as you're there, because I find that a big factor. It lets the spirits know that you are there by telling them who you are. Tell them why you're there. Be polite with them. Kind of inform, give them information because they're curious as what you're doing. That's probably why they're watching you. Just walk around, look at some of the headstones, talk about some of them. Give recognition to some of the dates. How old they are. Talk about the different styles of headstones. I find this all beneficial in the investigations we do. It seems to me, through my feelings, that it helps us being able to get responses from the spirits that are there. Once you get your preliminary walkthrough done, then we all go back and kind of go over notes, areas that we picked up on, the areas we didn't, so we can kind of somewhat concentrate. Maybe when we do go back to do our investigation, well, we may have gotten some K2 meter readings, or maybe have heard a sound, or possibly even picked up on a whisper or a voice. We might want to try to concentrate a little bit more on those areas to see if we can't get some type of activity. Get some more K2 meter or EMF meter readings. Use our digital recorder or our camera to see if we can pick up on any voices. Use a spirit box to see if we can pick up any type of communications. So that's some of the things that we'll kind of figure out, kind of get a game plan together of what type of equipment we're going to use, what we're going to try to make contact with, how we're going to make that contact. These are kind of steps and a plan on doing these investigations, and it's a little bit better than going in with no plan, because you go in, you could very well miss something that could be beneficial, or something that you might miss that you could have caught on camera to document, some form of evidence that can be beneficial in the long run of an investigation. So kind of keep that in mind as well. So we kind of get all that set up, and then we schedule for our investigation. We get all our equipment, make sure everything is up and running and all in good shape, all the batteries are charged. We go, we always like to be well rested before we go. We don't want to go into a place that's tired, because it can hinder your judgment on a lot of things. We don't like to go in after eating a full meal, because there are times, if there's an energy there that or a spirit that is trying to draw energy, there may not be no appliances or electrical or any way for them to draw energy. They will use your equipment. They will drain your batteries to get energy. They will use you to draw energy from your body. And I find, not necessarily, it hasn't happened to me, but it has happened to a couple of my crew, where they've gotten sick because there was a spirit or something that was drawing energy from them. So I kind of recommend or suggest to all my crew, let's not go on a full stomach. You don't want to be hungry, but you don't want to just eating and then go. You don't want to be tired. If you're sick, I kind of tell them, well, let's not do it. Let's reschedule it, because I feel that doesn't work that well either. So we go on our investigation. We gather as much as we can, by taking still pictures, video cam. We use our voice recorder, our EMF meter, our spirit box. Sometimes we'll take little triggers with us, like if we're trying to communicate with a child, we may take a ball or a doll, some kind of little musical instrument, something that would kind of interest a child, something they could play with, and we'll let them use that as a trigger for them to interact with, because I don't feel that you're talking to a child, they don't know you, they're going to be scared of you. I mean, if you were a child and a grown-up was talking to you, you usually run behind your mom or dad or somewhere, you know, because you're kind of scared of them because you don't know them. So we kind of place these little trigger objects on the ground. We'll put like sometimes we'll take 2 or 3 cameras with us, and we may set one up and just constantly shining at these trigger objects while we go do something else, or you know, we could put them there and back away from it and still be talking with and communicating. You know, tell them we have some toys there to play with. They light up pretty colors. They make, you know, sounds. There's a little ball there. Do you know how to kick the ball? You know, go over there and kick the ball. You know, kind of give them a little incentive there. You know, always tell them, you know, I'm not here to harm you. I just bring you some toys so you can play with, and we'll move away from it. So we'll give them like some space. That way they might feel a little bit more secure, come out and do something. I'm not saying that all the time happens, but I have seen things happen. I have seen the ball kicked. I assume it was kicked or hit or pushed. I don't know. I know there was nobody there. I have seen, we have like these little balls that are touch sensitive or movement sensitive that light up different colors. I have seen those light up, not necessarily move. So I feel that there's some kind of energy that did touch them that set them off. I have seen, we have like I don't know if you remember, but back in, I guess, my days, I won't say how old I am, you know, that just goes back a while, let's put it that way. But they used to have these little toys that were like pianos that you could play, that made noise. And we have something similar to that we use, and I have had that sound off before. So to me, I believe there is some type of energy there. I can't say that there was anything around there that could have made those things happen or go off. You know, it's what we call paranormal phenomenon. It's something we can't explain. We see it happening, we hear it. Some of it we're catching on camera, some of it we don't. We can catch it with our eye, which is unfortunate, but we do have things happen, and there's no explanation for it. Okay, now, once we got through those stages, which that stage there is most important, trying to get it on video. Because that you have proof or document that you actually saw it. What you say or what you hear, you know, there's no real proof there. People say, well, you're making it up. You know, possibly. We don't. Everything we hear or we see is what actually happened. But we try to catch as much evidence as we can, all the sounds around us, whether we catch it on camera. We'll talk about what we see, what we feel, what we hear. Use your senses. You know, if you feel achy muscle, backache, your leg aches, sick at your stomach, a headache, anything, you feel a cold spot, feel a hot spot, always say something about it. It is beneficial to your results in the end as well as your investigation. So be sure you talk about it. Now, you don't want to constantly talk the whole investigation, because if you're talking, there may be a voice or a whisper or a sound that your video camera didn't pick up, your voice recorder didn't pick up. All it was is picking up your voice, so you're drowning it out. So kind of pick your spots as to where you want to talk. You know, leave a lot of silence in there. Maybe ask a certain question, then be quiet. Just listen. Always talk with a soft voice. Don't yell. You don't have to yell. They're not deaf. They can hear you. So you don't want to talk in a threatening voice. You know, but you know, more or less give them a chance to communicate back, talk back. You've already asked a question. Now give them some time to respond. Excuse me. I find it that a lot of people, they'll rush through an investigation. You can, but you might miss something. I always like going slow. I may walk into it. We do one of our rituals that we do on anything we investigate, which is a prayer, a protection prayer I call it, because we're asking the Lord, to watch over us, to guide us, surround us with, with His power to protect us against anything evil, any dark energy, to guide us through our visit there, through our investigation. Help us to communicate with the spirits, help them communicate back with us. There's no really particular prayer that you say. You can pretty much come up with your own prayer, but it would be basically down those lines. And we also, when we're done with our investigation, as we're leaving, we'll do a follow-up prayer. And that's basically to thank the spirits for communicating with us, allowing us to come there, because we're coming into their house. It's not like if somebody comes to your house, you welcome them into your house, or you ask to be invited. You don't just walk in and think, well, this is my place. This is their place, so we're asking for their permission. We're asking for them to come and communicate with us. I find that very beneficial. So at the same point as when we leave, our prayers that we usually use is thanking them for allowing us to be there. We're thanking them for any communication they give us, or any sign or activity that we were able to do. We ask that they do not go home with us. They stay within the cemetery boundaries. This is their home. They are not allowed to come with us. They are not allowed to attach themselves to our equipment or any one of us. We ask the Lord to keep them there, to make them stay within their boundaries, to not leave. And of course, a lot of times we'll say, we're glad that we came, and we would love to come back again, and we'd like to communicate with you more, maybe communicate with somebody different. I find these little tips and hints beneficial into doing a lot of the investigation, because it's like you're building your trust up with them. You're showing them respect. They're going to want to interact or communicate with you more. I find that some places I go into, I turn on the spirit box like we're getting ready to talk to somebody, or not even that, because I have that ability to pick up on sense. I'll hear my name called, or something that pertained. I had one time, let me back up here just a little bit. It's not like I'm changing subjects or jumping off the path, but I do remember a time, it's been quite a while ago, that we gone to, it was a cemetery, because like I say, I'm more into cemeteries, because I seem like I get a lot more results. We do other things, but cemeteries is kind of like my top priority, or my top venue of places I like to go. But there was one, been quite a while ago, several years. I do recall that we've gone to several times. I think we've gone to this cemetery probably 5, 6 times before we even got any type of activity or picked up on anything. I was picking up on energy there, but wasn't able to pick up on anything happening. Of course, we did old school back then, where we didn't have the K2 meter or EMF meter. We used a compass, because it will basically do the same thing. A compass is a magnetic, picks up on magnetics, and energy is magnetic. But a compass, the needle's always going to point north, of course, because that's just what it's supposed to do. But we have been to a place where there's been an energy where the needle will fluctuate. It'll move. It won't just be pointing to where it's supposed to be pointing. So that is a sign that we're picking up on some kind of energy. We use a digital recorder where we're able to pick up on some sounds, voices or whispers that you normally couldn't hear with your own ears. But this one cemetery that we've gone to, it was probably the 5th, 6th time that we went to it. is when we walked through, it was like I heard a voice, one of the voices that I've heard in the past of going there, a whisper, but this was more a voice. It was distinct. I could hear it. Nobody else in my crew could hear it because I said, "Did you hear that?" Of course, nobody else heard it, but I did. But it said, "Tim is back," and it kind of it surprised me. It threw me off guard. That well, it remembers us being here. So that's where I kind of got in the habit when I go in. You know, I always try to ask it when we do a spirit box session to, can you say one of our names? And I find a little bit where I'm hearing my name or one of my crew's name being said. Sometimes it's very faint, but I am picking up on it. So to me, I feel that they are giving us the recognition. They are remembering us when we come back. They're feeling more secure about us, seeing that we're not there to harm them. And they're starting to interact with us, which is what we are trying to do with our investigations. Now, being able to prove it and say that this is what this is, you really can't. You can hear it, you can see it, but can you actually prove that that's what this is? This is a spirit communicating with us. Or is it just some kind of phenomenon, something that's happening? We really don't know. Hopefully someday we'll be able to say yes and prove that this is what is happening. We are able to communicate with those on the other side, with those that have passed on, that there is life after death. But until then, we just go with what we get and use our own assumptions, say, our beliefs. Oh yeah, I believe that they are real. I believe that we are communicating with them. But to actually scientifically prove that that's what that is, nobody can. At least not at this time. But I want to throw that in there because that just kind of thought just came to my mind, on when I was talking about how we, talk to them and introduce ourselves. I remember that, of getting that response back. So that does happen. Now, once we've done back to the subject, I'll probably have to put some of these in as bloopers. Because I have had things that are kind of funny that have happened to us in our videos. And I probably will make up a little blooper video. Kind of show some exciting things and funny things that have happened to us. Even when you're investigating, there are things that happen. It's kind of, I'm not quite sure what happened to part of that video, but that last part didn't come out, so we'll try to continue from where I left off. Was kind of talking about some of the funny things that happened to us and doing a blooper video. But I was saying that there are some times in our investigations where we might have malfunction in some of the equipment or something funny that happens. So, we like to be serious about our videos, what we do, but there are times that we do have a good time with what we're doing, and we do have some funny things that do happen to us. So probably later on down the line, I may make up a little blooper video. So kind of watch for that, keep an eye out for that video, because there are some hilarious things that do happen to us while we are doing our investigations or research. Back to the subject that we were talking about, which is doing our investigations, how we do it, how we go about it. The last part that we talked about was doing our filming of it. Excuse me. Once we get that done, then we take all that information back home to go through it. We don't necessarily do it that night, we kind of give it a break, maybe come in and work on it the next day, give us a chance to get a clear head, our thoughts together, and then we'll start going through the videos, going through notes, what everybody had felt, seen, or heard, kind of compare notes, we start debunking it basically, being able to figure out if there was something else around us that caused it, or if it's something that actually did happen that we have no, I guess you would say, no way of saying that we know what it was, that we can come up with an explanation for what happened. We call that paranormal phenomenon if we can't come up with a logical explanation. A lot of times we'll just kind of put a pin in it and bypass it and come back to it at a later time. We'll go ahead and just keep going through all our videos and everything we picked up on. Once we get all that done, then we'll kind of go back through it a second time, possibly even a third time. Maybe one person will watch it, and then a different person will watch it. We'll look for different things that we may have missed. Try to get it together. We'll go back over the things that we cannot explain, things that we can't come up with any determination of what could have caused it. If we still can't come up with a reason behind it, then we label that as paranormal phenomenon. That will be more or less in our final results. Once we have everything that we've gone through over and over and deciphered and gotten rid of stuff that we can't explain and stuff that we can explain, then we come up with our final results on our video. This is what we classify, in our investigation, what we have proof of, or not necessarily we can prove that that's what that was, but it's our final determination of our results for that investigation. When you do your investigations, always do it, like I say, with a clear, open mind, but have fun at what you're doing. Enjoy what you're doing. It kind of breaks up the monotony, and it's just a little bit more fun to do when you're enjoying yourself. So be sure you do that in your investigations. This pretty much wraps up this video for what we're going through on this episode. The next one that I probably will do, we'll kind of go over some of the equipment we use, what it does, how it's beneficial to the investigations. There's a lot of different equipment out there, a lot of technology out there. Some of the equipment is high priced, some of it is real reasonable. There are things you can do that really no cost to you at all. I started out kind of old school, like I've said in some of my past videos, where we didn't have all the fancy equipment they have nowadays. But we picked up new equipment here and there. We plan on getting a lot more equipment because there is a lot of other equipment out there that I feel that would be beneficial to us. A little more expensive, but we get these items as we can. But we'll get into that on our next video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Be sure to watch all our videos on this line, and go to our channel, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to hit that notification bell. That way, when one of our videos come out, you'll be notified. That way, you'll be able to see it when it comes out. Be sure to share and like, let others know about our videos. Make a comment if you have a comment on whether you liked our video or you saw something in our video that we may have missed. Not necessarily these, but on our actual visits to the places we go. If you see something we may have missed, be sure to comment on it. If you have any suggestions on how we might make things better, make our videos better, please let us know. Because we are trying to make our videos entertaining as well as educational. We want to please the fans, please our viewers. That way we get them coming back and see more of our videos. But until then, like I always say, stay spooky.